All right, hey, we're back live, man. Just sitting here with me, Kaz, Assistant Athletic Director over at SMU. And what we're going to do is do something different today. Instead of showing me getting that lift on and doing some stuff that people don't have access to right now, is we're going to open the floor up for questions and any issues that you have with your programs. And before we do that, we're just going to talk about just some basic principles that we imply in our program whenever we're trying to assess what needs to be done to best service the student athletes. And while we're doing that, you fire away questions and we'll see if we can make this go nice and smooth, slow and free, kind of like the dental appointment. All right. Okay, so the first thing we do in any of the programs whenever we're at a university is just try to assess how much space we have and how much equipment we have. All right, so how many athletes do you have? How many sports to train there, and how many power sports are there? If that makes sense. Okay, so if you're in a high school, this can be pretty difficult because I know you guys are restricted to school schedules and parent drop off and how many kids can actually drive. At a couple of clinics that I've had a opportunity to discuss this with a couple of coaches. I don't really feel like it's the same planet whenever you're discussing high school football and college football and professional football. The reason that is because of high school football, you have everybody that's included in that program. And then the college football teams are picking the 1% out of high school football and then training those guys, and the professional teams are picking the less than 1% out of college football and training those guys. So when you're in high school and you're working with high school athletes, they're still growing, they're still developing, just like we talked about. You still the difference between a freshman and a senior in high school is worlds apart. It's on different planets. And so the difference between a rookie and a veteran in the NFL might not be physical. It might not be in an appearance. It just is experience and understanding how to play the game. All right. So when you take a look at what a high school coach or high school strength coach is going through when they're trying to put their program together, and they have 300 athletes in a 1,500 square foot room or something ridiculous like that, compared to what we're going through on the college level, it really doesn't compare. It's not even close. I mean, I can't say apples and oranges because that just doesn't translate, right? Because the kid's sitting there waiting for his mom to drop him off, and at the same time, he's got probably 30 minutes to get a lift in, and you got to figure out how to get a warm up in and provide health and safety to all these young people that might not have eaten breakfast, that aren't really paying attention. And that's not the same planet that we're in college. All right. So what we'll do is open the floor to questions. You guys feel free to shoot us with a couple of questions. And while we're kind of talking about principles, we'll just have a free conversation here. And then we'll finish up with a little rehash on the video and just rehash a little bit of block clean. And I'll probably promote that Olympic complex a couple more times. Got some kids out in the garage right now, and they're always going to start with that Olympic complex. All right. Okay. So after we assess and try to see how much room we have and the type of equipment that's in the facility, from there, I always start with the big bodies, right? Take a look at the O&D line and see what type of O&D lineman you got, the limb length, considering that, considering training age, how old is your team? When you average the age out, are they young? Are they on the top side of juniors? Where are they? And then when you get to the specifics of who they are, is injury history. What's the training room telling you about the injury history of your program? You get a ton of information from what the trainer is telling you. The trainer sees, if you haven't done a great job building a base from the ground up, if he's seeing a lot of big toe sprains, if he's seeing a lot of low ankle sprains, if he's seeing a lot of high ankle sprains, if he's seeing a lot of knees, if he's seeing a lot of low backs, if he's seeing a lot of shoulder injuries, if he's seeing a lot of neck, he's seeing a lot of concussions, all that just kind of gives you a little bit of a roadmap to follow and what you want to focus on in your program. Don't take any of that personal. Every program has a couple of weaknesses or has a couple of places that people can tighten up at. Um, if you've been in a program for over 3 years and you know how to pay attention to the information that you're getting, and you know now how not to let your ego get in the way of the information that you're getting, it can actually help you create a better template for your athletes. By that, I mean the conversation you have with your head athletic trainer and your assistant athletic trainers, because they're going to be able to tell you if the athletes are going through such and such and such, right? And then what that does is it lets you map it out for the next cycle of that period, if that makes sense. If you're in the spring semester or the summer semester, you can pretty much predict the areas of concern moving forward. All right. Okay, we got a question here from Derek Wesley. For high school football athletes, is it better to lift heavier weights, less, or lighter weights more? Again, that's a good question. But when you say high school, that's a 4-year difference, right? From a freshman to a senior. So I'll say this, when you're a freshman and you're coming in, I think the technique supersedes everything, because you want to set a great foundation moving into your sophomore, junior, and senior year. I think that's the most important thing when you're in high school, is having people in the facility and in the weight room to understand how to move the bar, that are schooled in the art of strength and conditioning. All right. If it's just about moving heavy weight and not focused on fundamentals, well, I mean, you're going to get in what you put out. So you're going to start seeing what happens if you don't focus on fundamentals early. I think if you get a group of freshmen that walk in and you can identify the 1% within that freshman class and let the other guys grow up and let the other guys go through their growth spurt, and you do a great job setting up a deep foundation and a wide base, you're going to find out after freshman year and when they start to getting into the middle of their junior varsity year that you can pretty much predict how that varsity team early on is going to look. The answer to that question, I think it's just why. If you're a freshman, found just fundamentals until they're blue in the face, and then I wouldn't care. I'm not adjusting it to entertain you. If you're adjusting a template to keep a guy from getting bored or just for the sake of variety, I think you're running into a big issue, right? You should be doing pretty much things that look similar over and over again until they can't make a mistake doing them. You're going to front squat, you're going to back squat, you're going to squat. You're going to squat with an eccentric, you're going to squat with a pause, you're going to squat with a chain, you're going to squat with another accommodated resistance. You're going to front squat, you're going to squat basically, correct? All right. And then after that, you just kind of find a different way to do the same thing over and over again. If you've been keeping track since last week, we've cleaned 4 times a week. And it's been 1 from the floor, 1 from a high box, 1 from a lower box, but you've been block cleaning the whole time, right? And there's been the same Olympic complex in there to get my wrist, elbows, and shoulders prepared to go ahead and try to move the load. So, and you've seen the pulls. The pulls have been vertical pulls, pull-ups, chin-ups, overhand grip, underhand grip, mixed grip, whatever it is. It's been there have been pulls, right? And then some things are just to spice it up a little bit. Depending on who the individuals are in high school, that's when you can go ahead and start finding a little bit of a diversity in the load and how fundamental they are. All right. Great question, Derek. All right. Moving on to the next question. Anonymous, man. My man, Anonymous. What's up, Anonymous? During the quarantine period, what did you recommend high school athletes, middle school athletes to improve their explosive speed? There's that word again. Explosion, speed. Okay. What I recommend for high school athletes, middle school athletes, is make sure you get outside and move around. Make sure you're not sitting around on your phone all day, watching Netflix all day. Sitting around watching Hulu all day. I don't think that's right. I think during this whole period is to set yourself up some type of a schedule and move with a purpose. So I'll say this: get up in the morning, get a big breakfast, consume a lot of food in the morning. That way it'll keep your mood in check. It'll keep your emotions level, keep your head together, and you're not kind of just, doing random, if that makes sense, right? So personally, I'm up. I'm going to get my big bowl of cereal. I'm going to have my apple. I'm going to have a yogurt, and then go into making an omelet and try to put as many leftover vegetables that are in the refrigerator inside the omelet. A couple pieces of turkey bacon, glass of orange juice, right, Chris? And then, piece of toast. And that's a big breakfast for me. And then after that, it's just get a little bit of movement. After I do that, I'm going outside. And by outside, I'm going to find a big patch of green grass. I'm going to get on it and I'm going to start moving around and start running around. If I'm a young middle school kid or high school kid, what I'm telling you is get something to eat early in the morning, then get your butt outside and move around. Don't sit around too much because it's going to shorten your hip flexors, tighten your lower back, shorten your hamstrings, and now you're tight. And by the time all this time passes, you're stiff. Good. It's also a great way to kind of shake up the lungs. If you take a look at the virus and some of the symptoms of the virus is fluid in the lungs, it gives you a chance to move around and get that some of that out of your lungs and drink a lot of water. I've heard that that's great for the virus also. All right. I hope that answers your question. If it didn't, be direct and re-question and tell me to get to the point. All right, Coach Hayes, do you prefer cleans, jerks, or Olympic lifting? Or is it, well, let me reread that. Do you prefer cleans, jerks, for Olympic lifting? I don't know if I have a real preference. Everything we do is based on who's in the room and what we're trying to get. My preference is to do what needs to be done to give the head coach what he needs at that time, if that makes sense. We got to SMU in 2019. I think it was it 2017? 2017.
2018, January 7th.
January 7th. So we get here, it's January 7th, and now we're like, okay, that's after the season. So it's January 7th. I've got to go ahead and say, okay, these guys played a whole year. Now, what do we need to do? We're trying to bring in a new culture. Where are they coming from? Where are we going? You got to kind of project all those things. So without knowing what they went through during the season, I didn't put jerks in the program because I didn't know what type of shoulder history they had, if that makes sense. I stuck more to cleans because I was coming in January. I even reduced some of the pressing because I was coming in January and focused on more pulling because I didn't understand what they had as far as shoulder injuries or shoulder history, if that makes sense. If I'm blessed enough to be in the program for another couple of years, that viewpoint might change because I'm responsible for some of the injuries that they'd be going through, if that makes sense, some of the wear and tear. Does that make sense? So the football season, they're going to be injured. They're going to have some type of bumps and bruises and all that stuff. But the time that they're with us, the complaints that they have, if you've been at a place through a full cycle, let's say I've been here for a full 4 years, and a guy's saying my this and this hurts, well, that's a direct reflection of what you've been putting him through or what he hasn't bought into or what you haven't caught him doing. All right? And I know that hurts a little bit because we love to be like, it's not my fault. But I'm looking at it like, could I have helped minimize that in any kind of way? All right. Hope that answered your question too. Appreciate it, Coach Hayes. All right, moving on to my man, Rob Starr. Next year, we'll have all the athletes 9 to 12 during the same time length. We will separate skills and big skills. Would it benefit us to have our skilled athletes lift 3 times a week versus our big skill lifting 4 times a week? Both groups will run all 5 days. I love it. And the reason I'm saying I love it is because I think that you're addressing the different positions, you're addressing the different body types. I think you got to take a look at it and say, okay, what do we need to do to close the gap between the program that's ahead of us and the pull away from the program that's behind us? A lot of what happens in this industry is a little bit copycatish. And the problem with the copycat deal is if you're the champion and I'm copying the way that you train, how am I closing the distance? If you won a national championship or if you won the division championship or you won the conference championship and I'm just going to copy and paste whatever you're doing in your training program, how is that closing the distance for me? Unless I out-recruited you or unless I just out-geneticked you in high school, if that makes sense. All right? So let me look at the question again. All right. All the athletes will be in from 9 to 12. Okay. Same time. Separate the bigs and skills. I think you can separate the small skills. The problem with just going bigs and skills is sometimes that you overlook the intermediate guys. And the intermediate guys being your big running backs, linebackers, and tight ends, H-backs. And sometimes depending on the scheme, depending on the offense, even your quarterback could be is an intermediate guy, depending on how many times you're gonna make him tote the pill, right? So it's easy to say like the skills, which are your perimeter players, your corners, your wide receivers, slots, and even if you go, some of the DBs, it's easy to say those guys are skills, but depending on the scheme that the head coach is playing and the defensive coordinator and the O coordinator are playing, you might have a DB that's in the box that you got to train a little bit more like a linebacker. So you got a little bit of a gray area there, because if you're on the perimeter and you're going to stay on the perimeter, I think it's great to train those guys 3 times a week and make sure that you get what you need to get. If you're an old lineman, and I'm talking interior wise, and you're the center and the 2 guards, or you're the 2 D tackles, I get you with the 4 times a week. Now that gray area is those intermediate guys. Should they go 3 or should they go 4? Right? I think you got to take a look at what your program is and the trajectory that you want to take, and say, okay, is it best to go this way or that way? I'm good for mixing it up a little bit. What that means is I would go 4 and then I would fall back to 3, depending on how much time I have left, right? Depending on how many weeks that I'm training before camp. With everything that's going on with the coronavirus right now, I think that we'll be in a time crunch. So being in a time crunch, I think you need to start out 4 once everybody goes back to work. You start out 4 because everybody's going to be out of shape a little bit. And you got to figure out where you want to lose at. Ooh, the word lose. I don't want to lose. I'm a tough guy. I get it. Yeah. Okay. Where do you want to project your, I would say, potential failure at? So I want to be successful. Personally, I want to be successful with the O and big guys and D line when they lift. I want to be successful with the skill when they run. If I catch myself saying that the O and D line ran really well today and then lifted poorly, then in my opinion, I failed. If I find myself saying the skills had a great lift, but they ran poorly, I failed that day. So what we try to do is say, okay, we need to make sure that we never say these guys did not lift well, those lifting guys. If they didn't do something well, it needs to be something they're not supposed to do well, like a long run. I don't want to say the O and D line ran their 110s really well today. Let that sink in just for a little bit. Don't get too offended. I'm being extreme with the examples. I just don't want to say my big guys ran well, but didn't move weight well. Does that make sense? All right, I can't see you, but I'm assuming you're nodding your head and you're clapping your hands because I'm so on point. You know what I mean? Like, you're in total agreement right now. Thank you. It's my world. All right, let's go with my man Dylan. What does week 1 look like for incoming freshmen and JUCO transfers in the weight room? All right, week 1 is an assessment week. If that's what you want to know, you're going to come in and we're just trying to get to know each other. I got to find out how much you weigh. I got to get your body comp, how much body fat you have on. I got to figure out how many positions you played the year before. I want to know everything about you. I want to see the way that you walk. Do you roll on the inside of your foot? How do you walk? What shoes do you wear? The first week is an assessment week, and it's critical for us to set a safe environment for our young ladies and guys when they come in. All right. So the first week is making sure that we don't do anything stupid to where we can't train you after that. Does that make sense? All right. Some programs you'll walk in and they're going to, just balls to the walls first week. We got time. We got time. If you're nervous the first week, good. That just means you're ready. Butterflies are overemphasized. If you're nervous about the first week of training, that's good. That just means that you're ready to go. First week, the warm-up will be real long. The stretch will be real long. There'll be some light cardio to get you ready to train. A lot of general physical preparedness, right? GPP is what you'll hear a lot. So a lot of different movements. You're going to be sore as hell, all right? You're going to be sore. That's just what it is. But it's just getting you ready to train once we get rolling. There's a difference between working out and training. So when you get there, we got to get you ready. So you're going to come in because you're not going to be an idiot. You're going to have been already running. You're going to have been lifting and doing something. But when you get in, now we're going to say, okay, assess this guy. Let's shake him out a little bit, and then we'll go from there, right? We're not going to try to annihilate you the first week. That's uneducated. I mean, that's hustling backwards. That's checkers. That's not chess. All right, let's go. My man Anonymous. Anonymous is all over this joint. I bet you that's Coach Dykes checking on us, Chris. Jeez, Coach, he's honest, man. This sucker's the spy. Coach, can you give me some ideas for power clean at home? Some of the kids don't have weights and bars at home. Okay. Some ideas would be doing a great job. Get them warmed up, shorten the distance down on what their runs are, so they can focus a little bit more on acceleration, and then mix a little bit of plyos and jumps in there. If you don't have a bar at home, okay. If you have a med ball or something heavy that can get tossed and lands, I think that you can do something like that, something where you can be scooping it from the ground and throwing it up, and getting your hips extended, ankle, knees, and hips full extension, right? So that's why I'm saying some jumps and some plyometrics, and just making sure that we're not sitting there, gaining a whole bunch of bad weight, gaining a whole bunch of stretch mid-hig, you know, big around the waistline. All right, hope that answered your question. MA83, as far as cleans, which type of cleans do you find more beneficial? Coach Adams. Oh, shoot. You know what? By position, I love to pull the bigs from the ground. So by position, I love to coach the bigs up, and we can start clean pulls and learning how to come with the bar off the ground and move the bar off the ground. I think we showed that yesterday. And then the box stuff, I think, is more beneficial to the players that are always standing vertical. So your corners and your wide receivers. If you take a look at the corners and the wide receivers, if they're not going to be on the ground, they're not going to be coming from the position that a lot of the O and D linemen are, especially the interior guys. You know, I think that when you look at just setting a great foundation and not looking at sport performance or sport specific, which is a little bit of a catchphrase, you got to be careful with the sport specific stuff, because when you're saying that, you could exclude the foundational quality that they need. Does that make sense? So if I don't pull people, my crew from the ground just because they don't put their hand in the ground, I'm still not going to get the benefit of the lower back mobility and some of the full movement work, if that makes sense, right? The full power work, because power, the longer the distance the bar is moving from the ground, right? So they might not get that benefit, even though I might do some plyos and stuff with them. I don't want to get stuck in the sports specific world too far where they don't get that benefit. But to get the direct answer to your question there, as long as the bar is moving fast, those are the cleans that I prefer. As long as the bar is moving fast, there's no such thing as a clean moving too fast. So if you're moving from the block and you're going above the knee and your guys are ripping the bar fast and they're not getting a little bit of that forward back and forth with the old school hang clean, and you're not doing that, you're going off a static start, I'm with that. As long as the bar is close to their shirts and they're moving it fast and you're getting a true extension, which ankle, knees, and hips look like they're about to jump up and go for a rebound. Vertical. Push their feet into the ground, produce force, get those hips popping quick. If you're doing that, then you're on the right track. And if they're pulling from the ground and they're pulling that bar to them, and then you see them get full extension, ankle, knee, hips, shoulders get tall, chin is tall, and their head's about to go through the ceiling, everything's up, you're doing a great job. But if they're rocking back and forth trying to create momentum and the bar is away from their torso and it's getting swung out and they got to chase it down to catch it, yeah, I don't know if all that is beneficial. The guys with all the great genetics, they always find a way to make it out. Does that make sense? Your genetically gifted guys, I mean, you could have them jog the Krogers and shop for 30 minutes. They're going to come back big. They just are. All right. Jason, Haddock. We all track maxes, but do you also track physique and body comp for incoming year through senior year? And would you think that's beneficial to do at high school for all athletes as well? Hell yes. Yes. Track everything. Track that physique. If you can take pictures and you're comfortable in there, do it. If you have a female strength coach and she's proficient and the trainer and everybody's on the same page, I think you do it. We get better at what we test. If you're not going to test body comp, it's not important. I think those tests are more for myself than they are for the athletes. And I'm speaking selfishly right now. It lets me know personally if what we're doing and what we're prescribing in the weight room is even working at all, if that makes sense, right? But it also lets them see that they're making progress. when we're training our athletes, we're not going for aesthetics. This is not bodybuilding. The side effect of what we're doing is bodybuilding, but it's not bodybuilding. We're not going in there and saying, okay, you're going to do this many sets of reps so you can swell up and look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's not what we're doing. But what we are saying is if you eat, the side effect of you eating after we stress you out, your body will fill out. Now, if you choose not to eat, you are going to get broken down. You are choosing to get injured. When you look at bodybuilding, I just think that the set and rep scheme for what a power sport is going to be doing is a little bit extreme. They're a little bit, a little too much, especially depending on the physique of the kid, how fast the kid is, how many sports he's played, how much time he's actually spent training with the bar, how wide his waist is, all that, because all that loading, axial loading, all that stuff's got to go somewhere, right? You got that V shape, you got broad shoulders and a narrow waist, and you got that guy up under the bar, and he's not a power lifter. Your big old lineman a little wider in the hips, wider in the waist, less chance of getting a hernia, hopefully, less chance of getting that midsection hurt up. But some of these other guys that play in a couple other sports and you want them to be doing that, you gotta be really judicious with the sets and reps. All right, my man Mike Aguilar. Coach, how often do you adjust percentages and how often do you test them? Let me see. When you're a freshman, I don't adjust percentages much when you're a freshman. When you're a freshman and you're coming in, you're pretty much bored. The template is you just do the same thing over and over and over until we know you can't make a mistake with the template when you're a freshman. All right. Now, once you've gotten that year under your belt and you've really bought into nutrition and you're really taking care of yourself and you started to go to sleep and you started to carry your water bottle around you like a samurai with their sword, and now you're starting to fill out, well, guess what? You're like on a perpetual improvement. You're on an incline all the time. You're just always getting better. Now we got to catch up with you. So now we'll prescribe a percentage, but I'll keep an open box. So the open box is like if I see a guy that we were supposed to be sitting at what I call the sweet spot, which is between 70 to 75% is the sweet spot because the bar still moves fast. Some athletes, the sweet spot is between 65 to 70% because the bar still moves fast. Why am I saying that? Because that translates to what they're doing on the field. As soon as the bar slows down and it just turns into a raw power lift or it turns into just a raw weightlifting, I don't know if I can get that to translate for the head coach and for the position coach and for the coordinators when they get the athletes, okay? So I would say freshman year, not much. After that, sophomore to junior, every couple of weeks, we're taking a look at the template. Every couple of weeks, we're taking a look at the template. That doesn't mean we're changing what we're prescribing, but we're looking at the freaking intensity. We're looking at the percentages and making adjustments after that, after your freshman year. So between your sophomore and junior year, there's always a wave going on, right? When a guy gets into his senior year, we'll be, depending on the wear and tear, we'll take our time with that too. I'm trying to answer questions without giving away company secrets. Coach Dykes is watching podcast, man. He's probably the one sending me these questions. Chris is like a secret agent. They're setting me up, right? Yeah. Put your hand in there, Chris, so they can see that you're live. See, that's Chris. All right. Coach Hayes, do you modify exercises for big skill athletes that they may not, let me reread it. Do you modify exercises for big skill athletes that they may not perform pull-ups into inverted rows? Any other exercises you would modify for certain players? Am I reading that right? I do modify exercises for big O-line and D-line. So, and I think you put in there, right. Okay, so for O-line and D-line, I want them to be able to pull their own body weight up. I want them to be able to do the pull-ups just like the skill guys do, but at the same time, gravity is and they're going to win. So gravity is just, rough on these big guys. But we do want them to be proficient at pulling their own body weight up. The difference there, I think instead of just changing and saying you're not doing pull-ups, is the rep scheme. So for the skill guys, skills, you could rep it from 6 to whatever, 6 to 20. It doesn't matter how you set it up. They're going to knock it out. But for big guys, less reps, more sets. Good? All right. Next question. Where are we at? Flexibility, forceability, and recovery ability. Coach Tyson Gardner, Tulsa Hurricane, DB class 1990. Right. Shout out. All right. Well, I mean, I don't know if that's a question. I think that those are important points. Flexibility is important. It keeps everything loose, limber, and healthy. Producing force, crucial. Absorbing force, crucial. You got to be able to take a punch, right? So if two guys are running at each other and they're 4-4, something's got to give. So if I can produce force, I got to be able to absorb some force, right? If I can punch really hard, that's all great until I get punched hard. The ability to recover, you know, a lot of that is a choice too. You can put that into your programs, but you know, I could talk about this all day. Is nutritionally, how well do you take care of yourself? Because that's where you're going to recover at. Nutrition and rest, sleep, time management, managing how you manage your schoolwork, how you manage your family, how you manage your significant other, how you manage time away and getting away for yourself. Take care of yourself. All right. Shouts out, Ty. That's a long question. We got, what is that? Coach, do you still talk to your athletes about Bushido? If so, can you give us some talk about Bushido, especially during this time of virus, Coach Miller? Yeah. No, that makes me. It warms me up to see the Bushido pull up on the screen. Yes, we discuss it. We discuss it, and I might refer to being a monk more than I refer to Bushido at this point. So when I say a monk, it's just like what is their daily ritual? What are their principles? When you wake up in the morning, what are the religious things that you do? Like, what are you doing to put yourself in a better position to perform better? Just because you show up to training and just because you show up to practice, that doesn't mean you accomplished anything. Just because you showed up to training, that doesn't mean that you should get a good job. And just because somebody said good job, it doesn't mean it was a good job. It just means maybe they thought you were going to fail. So having their own principles and having their own code is important. So Bushido, kind of like the way of the warrior, those ancient warriors from past times that meditated on their demise, they understood that carrying a sword meant that if I'm going to carry a sword, I'm going to die by the sword. So when you're an athlete, what does that mean? You see athletes get injured each and every day. You see how tough it is to perform at a high level when you're a collegiate, high school, and let me jump all the way to professional athlete. So then why would you in turn choose to do anything at all that would make it more difficult to be at a high level? So are you a monk about what you do? Are you religious about what you do? Do you have a set script that you stick to make sure that you can maximize your potential and then minimize the chance of catastrophic injury? Because there's going to be an injury. I don't care if it's a hangnail or a sprained ankle. There's going to be something. Have you meditated on that and said, this is how I'm going to address it? Or do you sit there naively thinking that you're going to play every single game at 100%? Huh, Chris, do you think that? Like, do you think you're never going to get your foot stepped on? Do you think that there's never, ever going to be something that bangs you up a little bit? That's just being naive, all right? Well, let me do this. I appreciate you guys checking in today. Hope I didn't bore you to death. And if I did, good. Not every interaction is supposed to be for your entertainment. I see we got any questions that you want me to answer? Or should we just go ahead and kind of wrap it up? And then that's it, man. Any video that you want to pull up, we could breeze through. We'll just do like a quick rehash. So just going in there, got that music playing. Better turn that down. I know that wasn't clean that day, Chris. All right, here we go. We're back at the complex and then just working. I'm just going to keep saying this to you. If you think you got it figured out, for your young 14-year-old athletes, for your young 14-year-old, for your 15-year-old, whatever, get the bar in their hand, make them do the same thing over and over again. This Olympic complex, every single young pup that walked in the weight room would go through this 3 times. They don't have to have weight on it. The bar doesn't have to be 45 pounds if they can't handle it at that time. If it's a 35-pound bar, then I'm going to make them do it. And then once they show me that they're proficient in it, then we can lift. And I would focus on some body weight movements for all those young pups. Those first time in the weight room young guys, here's the bar complex. You're going to learn how to do a push-up, a body weight squat. You're going to learn how to do a lunge, and you're going to learn how to pull yourself up. And then after that, we're going to finish with a core if you're a young freshman. And then once you're really good at those things and you don't make mistakes doing those things, we'll go ahead and move on, right? Now, man, we're off the box. Not a great job getting the hips extended there. Got to bring the hips up taller. I think I'm a slow starter, and it's probably my producer's fault. He's just not coaching me up. You know what I mean? He's got to get on me early, often. Good. Get going. And as a coach, you're sitting there looking at it and you can see the hips aren't getting fully extended. He's got to get a little bit more hip pop in there. Right now, he's just kind of like beasting it up. And that happens when a guy knows that the weight is a little too light for him to take it seriously, right? So he's being a little cocky. He's not really on the go. He's using the work rep for a warm up. So we got to get in this guy's ear. This athlete's being what you call a hard head. We got to kick this guy's ass a little bit. All right, get the thing pulling, get your hips involved. That's a better job with the hips. Bring the bang, would you? Good, that's a better job with the hips. All right, that's off the box and that's mid-thigh. Good, and that's just a quick rehash of just block cleans and starting from a static start and not getting any kind of a hip motion and all that momentum going back and forth, all right? Appreciate you guys tuning in, and the next time you see my pretty face, I might be outside social distancing. Take it easy.